Hi, welcome to Nexus Consultancy. We provide professional and strategic consultation services specializing in ISO management system standards on quality, environmental, food safety, and many other standards as well. At Nexus Consultancy, we combine our analytical thinking, improvement-centric approach, and results-oriented mindset to help businesses to grow through ISO certifications. Consulting is more than just giving advice. To us, consulting is about building the connection with customers, solving their problems, implementing the change, and at last, helping them to grow. Our company's purpose is very simple, which is to empower business and people. We have dedicated 12 years in helping businesses to grow and also achieve operational process improvement through ISO certifications. Having served thousands of companies, Nexus Consultancy has truly built a legacy in helping customers to achieve long-term business growth. We have served companies from GLCs, SMEs to big corporations from a wide range of industries. We will work closely with you to create a customized consultation as unique as you are, offering you a truly value-added service which can fulfill your business needs and objectives. We believe in what we do and we would also like to do it for you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon, Codex HACCP 2020. Are you ready for the changes? We are glad that you're here with us this afternoon. My name is Shi. I'm from the sales and marketing team of Nexus Consultancy. I'm glad to be your host for today. So before we start off with the webinar, please allow me to briefly introduce a little bit about our company. Nexus Tech is an organization established to provide training, consultancy in all aspects related to management systems like the ISO 9001, various other ISOs, GMP, HACCP, and other certification. Our expertise is definitely available for a wide range of industries such as food industry, manufacturing, construction, medical healthcare, and many, many more. Nexus Academy is also part of a company that provides soft skills training for our team development and personal growth. Our courses are customized based on training analysis needs, research gap, as well as understanding your business needs of your company prior to any trainings. Last year, we are honored to be partnered with CIQ from China. We are here to provide a one-stop solution for all your China export consultation needs as well. Our services include training on China requirements, lab testing for your products, trademark services for your brand, both in Malaysia and also China, traceability products certification as well as registration. And the industries that we cover are inclusive of food, special food, cosmetics, agriculture, and aquaculture. And next, I would like to introduce our new, fresh from the oven product, Nexus ERP Plus. I'm sure we are all aware that due to pandemic situation, lots of things have changed, and part of it would definitely be the new norm where we have to digitalize our working approach. So taking that into consideration, we would like to provide digital solutions to the businesses out there as well by incorporating management system with software system. So our Nexus ERP Plus is the only ERP software in Malaysia that is based on ISO 9001 standard requirements. It is powered by ERP Next, jointly provided by Nexus, where we have over 14 years of ISO training and consultancy experience, okay? And our partner, Beyond Wave Consulting Senjan Berhad, where they have 10 years of experience in ERP implementation. Sounds like a perfect fit, huh? Okay, so pairing this ERP software with our ISO 9000 consultancy, our ERP Plus is not only uniquely customized to your business needs, but also customized according to ISO 9001 standard requirements, which helps you to automate your business processes while complying to the international best practices, just like 2-in-1 coffee. Just kidding. Okay, so our ERP Plus is particularly, I would say, specifically made to help SMEs, your businesses, to operate more efficiently by digitizing your core processes, okay, to gain real-time visibility into your operational and financial performances, as well as to deliver consistent quality and maintain the management system with paperless documentation. With this incorporation, it is definitely time-saving and cost-effective for your organization. And that was a brief introduction about our company, Nexus Consultancy. And together with our partners, we are definitely here to help your businesses grow. So, without further ado, I'm pleased to invite our speaker here today, Ms. Danielle Tan. As you can see her profile earlier on, Ms. Danielle is our company's managing consultant that specializes in assisting companies to improve their business processes. In her past records, she has provided numerous trainings and consultations relating to food safety. And today, she is going to share with you guys about the new changes on Codex HACCP 2020. So let us hear from our lovely speaker here, Ms. Danielle Tan. Good afternoon, Danielle. The stage is yours now. Over to you.
Hi, thank you, Shi. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I see participants audience from Malaysia, Egypt, Philippines, as well as Melbourne. That's my pleasure to deliver this webinar to you today. So my name is Danielle, and thank you for being here with us today at our very first webinar of the year 2020. And starting March, we'll be having series of webinar every month focusing on the topic related to food industry. And today's topic is Codex HACCP 2020. Are you ready for the change? So some of you may already know that the Codex has published the latest version back in September 2020. And we know that some of the company have not yet upgraded their Codex HACCP to the new version. That's why we hope today's session will help you to have a quick check if you are ready to upgrade your current HACCP system to the new version. Or if you are not yet certified to HACCP, this could be an opportunity for you to have an initial understanding about Codex HACCP. And if you are already certified to the new version, then perhaps I wish to hear from you. What are the challenges that you face during the implementation? Okay, so my presentation will take about 40 minutes and then followed by Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the comment section. So I will try my best to answer them during the Q&A session. All right, so there are both major and minor changes in the Codex HACCP 2020. These are the 6 key areas that I will be covering today. So first, we're going to take a look on the new structure in Codex HACCP 2020. The structure has been rearranged. And then I will walk you through the overview of the main changes. Next, we'll zoom into these 4 areas which has the major change. First is the general principles, and then followed by management commitment and food safety culture. We'll also run through the chapter 1, good hygiene practices. There are quite a number of significant changes to good hygiene practices. And lastly, I will run you through the chapter 2 HACCP system. So one of the significant changes in the Codex HACCP 2020 is the introduction of the food safety culture. And I would say it is the hottest topic in any food safety management system nowadays. That's why I will be spending a little bit more time on this food safety culture topic, sharing with you what you need to do or what you can do to build a positive food safety culture. So before we go into the changes, let's take a look on the change history of Codex HACCP 2020. So the standard general principle of hygiene was first adopted in year 1969. Many years ago, I wasn't born yet. And since then, it has been revised 3 times, first in 1997 and then 2003. The latest one was published in 2020. And there was a minor amendment done in 1999. All right. The latest version of Codex HACCP 2020 has this new structure. As you can see from the screen, we have topic number 1 to topic number 10, right? So compared to the old 2003 version, section 1 to 6 has been rearranged. The content is still similar, it's just the way the topics are arranged is different. And the clauses of the good hygiene practices in the old standard has been grouped together, and then now it is parked under chapter 1, and then HACCP system now is under chapter 2. And we still see the annexes and diagram provided by the standard at the end of the book. All right, so besides changes on the new structure, Codex HACCP 2020 has quite a number of adjusted and additional requirements to those in the old version. So what I like about this new version is that it provides much more detailed explanation for each clause with example given, especially in Chapter 1, Good Hygiene Practices, and Chapter 2, HACCP System, which I believe it helps a lot in terms of implementation. So what I'm showing you now is the overview of the main changes. So later I will walk you through these 5 topics to take a look on what are the main changes. So first, we're going to walk through the management commitment to food safety. So this has been added as a section in the introduction. So it basically emphasizes on the importance of management responsibility to ensure the effectiveness of the HACCP system. And as you can see, food safety culture has been added as well, not under GHP or HACCP, but as a section in the introduction, which means now the standard requires the company to build a positive food safety culture. And how do we do that? We need to demonstrate our commitment to provide safe and suitable food to the consumer. So the good news is that the elements how to build the food safety culture is actually provided in the standard. So I will walk you through on the element when we come to food safety culture topic later. And the next topic, quite a focus on this new standard, is the allergen management. So requirements for allergen management has been added in Chapter 1, Good Hygiene Practices, which in general strengthening the allergen controls and cross-contamination control in food operation. So good news is that Codex has published, The good news is that Codex has published a guidance document on allergen management. So if you wish to have a copy of the guidance document on allergen management, maybe you can type allergen in the comment box so that we can send you a copy afterwards. All right, so next I will also help you run through the good hygiene practices. And because the clauses has been rearranged and there are a lot of additional requirements added to Chapter 1 Good Hygiene Practices, as well as the HACCP principles. And last but not least, I will also walk you through on this. Codex HACCP Edition 3 has been removed from the standard, which means now we have the flexibility to use any HACCP Edition 3 to set up the HACCP in the system. So first, let's take a look on the general principles outlined in the standard. I have narrowed down the general principle into these 4 categories. So these 4 general principles are used to construct the content of the Codex HACCP 2020. So principle number one is scientific-based preventive approach. So the standard emphasizes a lot on using scientific-based preventive approach for food safety control. So the term scientific and science-based has been used multiple times in the standard. For example, when we set cooking as a CCP, we set the temperature 85 degrees Celsius, 20 minutes. So ask why we set this temperature and time. Why not 80 degrees Celsius? So the temperature setting must be scientifically proven to be effective. So how can we do that? One of the way that you're familiar with is through validation. So we run multi-batches, trial batches of the production, sample the product, and send for lab testing. The result can be used to validate whether the CCP works or not. So another example is we can refer to literature references that is available and scientifically proven. For example, if you are having pasteurization or sterilization process as a CCP, then there are plenty of literature references that you can use to validate your control setting. Right. And we also need to review the hazard system at planned intervals to see if there's any new products or new requirements or new scientific knowledge that we need to update into the system. Right. Another example is cleaning method. So how do we know that the method is effective? We need to validate the cleaning method by doing a microbe sort test after cleaning is done. So that is principle number 1. So let's move on to general principle number 2, food safety hazard awareness. So each company should be aware of the food safety hazards that they are dealing with, either coming from raw material, packaging material, and processes. So which means we shall equip ourselves with the required knowledge on food safety measures suitable to your products, because different products will be dealing with different type of hazards. For example, if you are producing high-risk products such as meat product, seafood product, or dairy product, the significance of the hazard most of the time will be coming from biological hazard, compared to if you are running a product, low-risk product, for example, biscuit or maybe powder product that generally have lower water activity level, then maybe biological hazard is not our main priority, but perhaps physical hazard is. So that is on general principle number 2, hazard awareness. And then come to principle number 3. So when it comes to food safety control, we want to combine both good hygiene practices and CCP as the control measures, not just relying on CCP alone, but to focus on how to properly implement the good hygiene practice so that to reduce food safety risks, which means setting the foundation right and strong. So example, if you want to kill bacteria in food product, usually we will set a process, cooking process as a CCP to kill the bacteria. So that is the control element from CCP. But at the same time, we also need to implement good hygiene practices. Example, we need to take care of the personal hygiene, cleaning, and sanitation. So that is the meaning of we should combine both control measures together. Right. And the last principles is communication. So we all agree that food safety system will not work if there's no communication on what we need to do to ensure food safety. And it is not just communication within the organization, but how about communicate to external parties such as suppliers, transporters, service providers, and customer. So these are the general principles used for the development of the new version of Codex HACCP 2020. All right, so let's take a look on the first topic that has the key changes, which is management commitment and food safety culture. So leaders and management play important roles in the success of a food safety system. But sometimes we hear people telling us getting certified is not difficult, but it is difficult to maintain the system consistently. And why is that? So over the years, we have talked to our customers on the challenges they face in their food safety management system implementation. And these are the 3 common challenges that they shared with us. Number 1, alignment with management commitment. So sometimes management expectation of food safety is not aligned with the people in the company. It could be management expectation is not clearly communicated to the team. And number 2, lack of food safety awareness. So people, either internal people or external people, are not fully aware on food safety. It could be understanding on the importance of food safety or what exactly they need to do to achieve that. And challenge number 3 is communication issue. Lots of time, miscommunication is the root cause of many problems. And when there is lack of communication, people may not be fully aware or understand how they can contribute to food safety. Now, I would like to ask you these questions. Okay, which of these challenges resonate with you the most? Number 1, 2, or 3? Yeah, please share with me your answers in the comment box. All right. The reason why I ask is because I want to relate the next thing that I'm going to talk about to the challenges, to your challenges. Or maybe if none of this appeals to you, please share with me your challenges in the comment sections. So let's take a look. Okay, thank you, Shahira. You have mentioned number 1, yeah? All right. So I see, thank you, Kankahao. Okay, number 3, communication. Yeah. Some more? Anyone say 2? Oh, CT, 1, 2, 3. All of them. All right. So for now, I see 1 is the top answer. Okay, thank you, Jessie. Number 2, food safety awareness. All right. Thank you so much for your responses. Okay, so speaking of food safety culture and the challenges that we went through just now, those challenges are quite common, as you can see, and it is always related to people. So we need people to implement a system or certain control, and people behaviors do impact the success of a food safety management system. But how do we make people listen and do what they are supposed to do? Not only once, but consistently. The answer is through food safety culture. So what is a food safety culture? Culture is shared values, beliefs, and norms. So for example, I'm a Chinese. I celebrate Chinese New Year and give away ang paos as blessings to our young one. Back to food safety system, culture is shared values, beliefs, and norms that affect the mindset and behaviors toward food safety in, across, and throughout the entire company. So which means it's not only one people belief, all right, but the entire company's belief. So when the belief is right, for example, my belief about food safety culture, food safety is important. If our product is not safe, then people who eat it may die. That's my belief. So this belief will translate into my behavior, the way I do my work. So back to the company, when the belief is right, communicated and also understood throughout the entire organizations to all levels, top management, middle management, and the lower management level, it becomes a norm, which means you will do it even when there's no one looking. So that is food safety culture. So how do we build a food safety culture? Here I introduce to you the 5R food safety culture framework that is used in many food safety management systems. So you can use this to actually build a food safety culture in your company. So there are 5 dimensions that we can work on to build a positive food safety culture. So the first dimension is the realize. That is the first R. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to use my pen. All right. Okay, so the first R is realize. So realize is about setting the right vision and mission, which is aligned with your food safety purposes, right? So the second R is reflect. Reflect is related to people. So one of the key things in people is communication and continue learning. And the third R is realign, which is about consistency. So as I mentioned earlier, to get HACCP certified is not difficult. But to maintain it consistently, to let people continue to implement it, sometimes it's very challenging. And why is that? Because we don't see the consistency in implementation. So there are 3 elements that can help us to build consistency culture. Number 1, accountability. Number 2, performance measurement. And number 3, documentation. And the 4th R is readjust, which is about adaptability. So when we have already set out a food safety management system, we need to know what is our current state and what is our expectation of food safety. And we need to be agile enough to keep ourselves updated with the changes that is happening in the market or in the industry. So for example, for the past 2 years, we have been dealing with pandemic, and the pandemic do impact the way we see food safety as well. So that is the example of manage a change, which also include we need to manage a crisis and problem solving. And the 5th R is recognize. So recognize is to be able to identify the new hazards and new risks associated to food safety in the company. So due to the limited time that we have today, I'm going to run you through the 3rd R, realign consistency in details for these 3 elements over here. So I hope You can use that to build your food safety culture, starting from setting a right culture for consistency. All right, so let's take a look on the first one, accountability. I would like to introduce you the first mindset change, which is food safety is everyone's job. So when we ask the questions, who is responsible for food safety in your company, many people will answer QA, right? Or maybe production. So I would like to introduce to you the first mindset change. Food safety is not only QA job, but food safety is everyone's job. So how do we do that? So in terms of accountability, we want to shift from someone, food safety is someone's job, it's not my job, it's someone, to everyone. So how do we do that? You may start with asking these questions. Number one, who is responsible for making sure the food is safe? You can ask these questions to different people in the company. Ask the boss, ask the manager, and the operator, and see what answers do you get. You may be surprised, different people may have different answers. Like, for example, some may say, I have a QA team responsible for that. Or food safety, I think it should be my manager. So when you get this answer, it tells you that maybe not everyone's are clear about their food safety accountability and what they're supposed to do or respond in the event of food safety problem. And then we will link to questions number 2. Are responsibility and authority defined clearly for all employees? So one of the reasons when there is lack of accountability is because no one has ever told them what they're supposed to do. As management, we know that very clear in our heart, our expectations, but do we tell our staff clearly on what we expect them to do? For example, a manager tells a supervisor, you need to handle rejects happening in production properly. That's a message communicated. So in the manager mind, handle properly means you need to isolate, you need to record, and then you need to report. But to the supervisor, he may understand, handle rejects properly in a different meaning. So define clearly means to be specific. Number 3, what the general situations like at the workplace? So especially in terms of staff reporting problem, questioning procedure, or suggesting improvement. So who are the person who report food safety problem all the time? Is that, again, pointing to a particular person or particular department, or is it everyone? Who did the investigation? And who will come up with corrective action? So again, if the answer you get is pointing towards a specific person or department, then we know that there's a gap in food safety accountability. Right? So that is the first element in consistency, how to build a consistent culture in food safety system. Okay, if you have any questions or you wish to know more, please type your questions in the comment box. I will try my best to answer them later. Okay, so let's take a look on the second element to ensure the culture of consistency in implementation. That is performance measurement. So the mindset shift number 2 that I'm introducing today is what gets measured gets improved. So to cultivate the culture of consistency, we want to measure the food safety performance. And when we measure what is really important in the food operation, we shift from mystery to certainty. So imagine if we continue doing what we do every day. Okay, I monitor CCP every day, I just fill out the form, check the temperature, and record. Without measuring how well we do it, we won't be able to know how far are we from the goal, the food safety goal that we want to achieve, and what do we need to do to close the gap. So without measurement, there will be no inputs on information, as if we are blindfolded and wandering in the dark. So we can shift mystery to certainty by measuring the important indicators that contribute to food safety. So of course, I'm not asking you to measure every single thing that you do, but focus on what is the important to food safety. For example, we can measure food safety KPIs achievement. CCP monitoring results, how many percent, deviation versus compliance, pest control, trend analysis, and product rejections. So the 3 questions to ask are, number 1, have you set the KPI for food safety? And then communicated and understood at all levels. So all levels here means all relevant functions in the company, not just QA, not just production, but other functions such as purchasing, maintenance, warehouse, sales, etc. So if you already have the KPI set, then is it communicated? And people actually understand step by steps what they need to do to achieve the KPIs. So once you have the KPI, the next question to ask is, number 2, how frequent is food safety reporting being done and reviewed? So in business, there are many reports that the higher management want to see, right? At least once a month, or some even do it weekly. For example, financial report or sales report. However, it is quite common we don't review food safety report that frequent. So many times when I ask these questions to my clients, some will say that, oh, yeah, Miss Danielle, we do it. We review it once a year during management review. So for me, 1 year is not frequent enough, especially when there are food safety issues that need immediate attention. So to start doing this, start from listing down what kind of food safety reports that you have and what else do you need to add to help you better evaluating the performance of the food safety system. And then start setting the time to review them so you can review perhaps quarterly or monthly basis. And questions number 3 is food safety information checked and used to make improvement? So once you got the record, do you use the information provided to you? So if let's say you have the CCP monitoring report analyzed and it tells you at certain period of time, they usually will happen, the CCP will be out of control. So do you zoom in to investigate what time is it, what product is it, what production line is it, so that you can actually kickstart the investigation of root cause and then propose proper corrective action. So that is the 3rd questions that we want to ask ourselves in terms of performance measurement. Okay, let's move on to the 3rd one. Next, the final element that builds a culture of consistency is documentation. So I think we all have different feeling about documentation. The fact is we need documentation. Imagine there's no SOP in dealing with COVID situation in our country. What will happen? So in this context, people can die because of not following the COVID SOP. So it is the same in food safety. If it wasn't documented, then it will not happen. All right, so let's take a look. How do we do that? So now you may have doubt that I have documentation, I'm HACCP certified, so we have got a well-written manual, SOPs, and lots of work instructions. But people still don't follow them. And not even talk about following SOP, they don't read them. So the problem is not documentation, is the way we write them. All right, so have you ever tried to read some document and then you find it very difficult to understand because of the words used, or maybe it's too lengthy? And what makes it even more difficult is what we actually do not in line with what is written. So sometimes people do get confused. So for documentations, we want to shift from confused to understood. All right, so these questions, the 3 questions to ask are, number 1, are documents accessible to whoever who need to use them? Think about this. If we want people to read and understand the SOPs, why is it we make it so difficult for them to get the documents? So the areas to look into is the document distribution process. Is it simple enough and easy for people to reach the documents? So next, is the document up to date? So especially when there are changes that could impact food safety, such as we may have new legal requirements, maybe there is a labeling change required by customer, formulation change. So are these changes updated quickly enough? to match the business process. And the most important part is whether the document that you have is easy to understand. So in order to do this, think about the person who is going to read them. Are they managers, supervisors, or operators? So one important factor to consider is to design the documents according to the competency levels. For example, a well-written SOP is easily understood by executive level, but not necessarily for operators. So for operators, we may want to use pictures or flowcharts to demonstrate in a more simple way for easy understanding. All right, so that's question number 1. Question number 2. Are documents established considering food safety as well as business risk? So in hazard system, we know that there are 3 types of food safety hazards that we need to consider when we're setting up the hazard analysis, which is biological, chemical, and physical hazard. But what about business risks that could impact food safety? So for example, water disruptions. So the food safety risk implication here is when there's no water, we can't do cleaning. And when we can't do cleaning, product may be contaminated. So to control food safety risk, which is biological, chemical, and physical hazard, we can use good hygiene practices and CCP, right? But for business risk, we will also need to establish SOPs to deal with the incident when it happened. Okay, so question number 3. Let me clear this. Question number 3 to ask is, are staff trained on hazard plan and SOP? So sometimes I do hear people sharing with me that, yeah, we do training, but training doesn't work. You know, we train and train and train, but they still don't follow. Sound familiar? So maybe they do it in the first week, but after a while, they go back to square one, right? So for me, training only works if there is follow-up action after the training. So check this. Before sending staff for training, do you tell them what is the objective of the training and what is your expectation on them? As it's what they need to learn and what they need to change or do after the training. Second, is there action plans defining on activities to be done, okay, after the training? And do you follow up on the progress of this action plan? So for me, training is not only, you spend 1 or 2 days that we sit down and listen to what the trainer has to say, but it is about what we want to learn and how do we practice it later. So for some, training is not effective because the second part, which is the action plan and following up, is missing. For example, for operator, one simple way to do following up after your GMP or food safety training is daily briefing. So some companies, they do this daily. They call it daily huddle, early in the morning before they start production, and then the supervisor or the team lead will gather the operators together. So they just spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes. The supervisor or the line leader will brief the entire team on the things that need to do for that day. So usually it covers, okay, today, what do we need to produce? What is our daily target output? But imagine you can also use this opportunity to include the message that you want to deliver related to food safety. For example, you can reinforce the hygiene practices to the operators during this 5 to 10 minutes briefing. So you can say something like, okay, make sure the table is clean before you start production, okay? Or make sure the rejected product, it is put under the reject basket, which is a red color one, and then you need to record it somewhere. So you can also talk about issues that happened yesterday, okay, some rejects or non-conforming issues, and quickly remind everyone not to repeat the same issue today. So that is what you can do to reinforce what you have trained your staff to do, okay, in the documentation. So that is the 3 elements that I would like to share with you today, which you can practice right away after this to build a positive food safety culture in terms of consistency. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, please feel free to tag them in the comment box here. Next, I will move on to the key changes in Chapter 1, Good Hygiene Practices. So sections in Chapter 1, Good Hygiene Practices has been rearranged. The topic has been rearranged into a more practical way that for me, make more sense now lah. So example, section 4, training and competency over here has been moved to the front. It used to be at the back, right? So you can see we have section 1, which is the introduction, and then number 2, primary production, 3 is about facility and equipment, design, and 4, training competency, and then section 5 is on maintenance, cleaning, and pest control. So the topic is still very similar. However, there are many added requirements in the topic. So I will run you through after this. And section 6 is personal hygiene, 7, control operation, 8, product information, consumer awareness, and 9, transportation. So this is the new sections in chapter 1, good hygiene practices. Now let's zoom into the each sections, what are the key changes. Okay, so in section 3, design of facilities and equipment, we can see that in terms of the first one, design and layout of the food establishment, they have added this new requirement, which is if in your production area or your factory, you have areas with different hygiene control level, now it need to be separated. Okay, so this is newly added. So example, if you have a production area, packing area, where we consider this could be a high risk area because your product is still under process, it haven't turned into a packed and protected finished product yet. So this is one hygiene area, high risk area. And you have another one, which is the warehouse area. So the warehouse zone is considered low risk zone because we only use it for storage, and the things that we store there is already fully packed and protected. So it will not be any risk of contamination, and we also don't do any processing there. So these two different hygiene control level area, production and packing, and also warehouse, it need to be separated. And when it says separated, usually it refers to physically separated. Okay, all right. So the second one, the changes that we see is in the hygiene and personal hygiene and in terms of their facility, which is the hand washing basin. So if we have hand washing basins should not be used for washing food or utensils. So we should have a separate one. Okay, one for hand wash, one for equipment washing. And then for storage, here you see the introduction of allergen management. So first we see in the storage facility, we now need to have a procedure. How do we control cross-contamination of allergen in storage area? So usually what we do is we need to separate the allergen and non-allergen material storage area. Okay, so this is the first part. They have incorporated allergen control in the GHP topic. Okay, moving on to topic related to training and competency. So training programs should also consider the topics that you need to do. So in the new standard, they have listed, given a list of the training topics to be considered. All right, so number 1, we need to do the training in terms of food hygiene principles. Okay, and number 2, you can also do the training in terms of your control measures used to control food safety. So for example, you can train people on CCP, monitoring, GNP monitoring, pest control, how do you manage rubbish or allergen control. Okay, topic number 3 to consider is GNP and good hygiene practices. I would say this is a must, but do modify your topics to suit people with different competency level. And then you could also consider to do the training on control of non-conforming product and corrective action. So in addition, if your training used to be only focused on food handler, people that handle food in the company, for example, who work in production, packing and warehouse, now we also need to include personnel from other departments such as maintenance, purchasing, or maybe transportation department. Okay, so that is the changes on training. Okay, moving on to section 5, under the topic maintenance, cleaning, and pest control. So again, you see over here, they introduce the control of allergen cross-contamination. So which means when we do cleaning, we must make sure contamination of the allergen don't happen. So how do we do that? Example, you can separate cleaning tools used for allergen and non-allergen equipment cleaning. Okay, then you can separate. You now need to separate the cleaning tools for different hygiene zones as well. So the example that I given earlier, we have production and packing zone, and then we also have a low risk zone, which is warehouse. So cleaning tools for these two different areas need to be separated. Okay, so that is the key changes in section 5. And moving on to 6, personal hygiene. So for illness and injuries, now the standard says that we need to consider medical examination. Okay, so if you use plaster and consider the potential source of contamination from the plaster. So in this case, many companies, what they use the plaster with metal strip in it, which can be detectable by metal detector. So that's one way. And under visitor control, we need to also include visitor also include your own company personnel, which is office personnel or maybe from maintenance. So they need to be aware of your hygiene control policy. And whenever you have visitor visiting your company, they need to be guided through a hygiene policy prior to the visit. So you can do a hygiene briefing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes briefing before they enter your plant. Okay, so section 7, control operations. This is the things that they have rearranged under description of products and processed. And one thing that you see here, which I written in red color, is allergen management has been added as a key aspect of good hygiene practices. And earlier on, I said the guidance document published by Codex, this is the title, Code of Practice on Food Allergen Management. So if you're not sure how to set out an allergen control procedure, please read this guide. Okay, so on product information and consumer awareness, they have added traceability. So it's weird that traceability earlier is not in the old version. However, I do believe you already have traceability system in place in your company, right? If not, you can't do recall. But somehow in the new standard, they have added these traceability requirements. And again, there's also another guidance book published for traceability, which you can use them to set up or check your traceability system. Okay, so for consumer awareness, because of addition of allergen management requirement, we need to let the consumer know there is allergen in your product. So one of the way to do it is through the allergen warning on your product labeling. And last is the transportation. So as you can see, the key changes over here is we need to control allergen cross contact. So imagine if you have your own delivery truck, both delivered allergen and non-allergen product, you need to think about how to separate them, okay, to avoid cross contamination. All right, so that is the key changes happening in good hygiene practices. If you have any questions, please type them in the comment box. Next, I will move on to the last topic, which is the chapter 2 HACCP system. So if you're familiar with HACCP system, we know that HACCP is, we have 7 HACCP principles, and then we have 12 steps to implement them. So what you see right now is the preliminary steps from step number 1 to 5, the steps that we need to do before we can carry out a hazard analysis exercise. Okay, so there are some changes in terms of the steps over here. The first one is assemble hazard team, and they have added identify scope. Okay, so the red color one is newly added. Step 2 is still the same. You need to prepare a product specification. Step 3, identify intended use and user. So now they have added user. So what is the difference? Intended use is the way we eat the product. For example, mineral water is ready to drink. I do not need to cook them. And then, or maybe you have another product is a frozen product. So intended use is to defrost them and then steam them for 20 minutes, for example. Okay, so that is intended use. So who are the target user? Your product, anyone can eat the product. Is it general public? Or maybe certain group of people, they can't eat it, for example, pregnant women. So you need to define clearly who is your targeted user. Step 4 is to construct a flow diagram. That is still the same. And then step 5 is on-site confirmation on flow diagram. So no changes on that. And here we go from step 6 to 12, which is our principle 1 to 7 in HACCP. So the changes happening in principle number 3. So they have added this term validated. Okay, so critical limits are used. I'm sure that you already have this in place. It's just that now they have emphasized it need to be scientifically proven lah. So they added this word validated. Okay, and the other change is under principle 6. This is quite major. It used to be only established procedure for verification. Now they have added validation. So meaning now they have made a very clear distinction between these two, validate and verifications. They are different. So validate is to prove it works. Okay, verification is double check you really do it. And the good news is that they also have a guidance document published in their website on validation. So you can actually refer to it for implementation purposes. Okay, so that are the key changes under Chapter 2 HACCP system. So there are some key points to take note though. Okay, the first one, to conduct hazard analysis, usually we will consider, okay, what is the our product, the material that we deal with, and also what are the processes, right? We will analyze those things. So now we not only want to consider the intended use of the product, but also any known unintended use, which means, for example, if you have a frozen product, the intended use should be defrost and then steam it for 20 minutes before you can consume the product. But is there any known unintended use? Like maybe, I don't know why, but some consumer may, without defrost, they straight away take out from the fridge and then they steam it. Okay, so in that case, maybe the temperature, 20 minutes steaming will not be sufficient to kill the bacteria. So that is a known unintended use. So when we consider, okay, what kind of hazard that could happen, we will also need to consider known unintended use. All right. So principle 2 for determine the CCP. Since the CCP decision tree has been removed from the standard, so how do we identify the CCP now? Okay. So to identify a CCP, we can actually use many references that is available. So you can use the CCP decision tree if you are from Malaysia. If you're familiar with Malaysia Standard 1480, you can use the CCP decision tree over there. Or you can use, if you're ISO or FSSC 22000 certified, then you can use the CCP decision tree in that book as well. Okay, so that is the things that you need to take note for CCP. Okay, and then another tips for monitoring control of CCP. Okay, principle number 4 over here is usually we set up a monitoring system for CCP, and we have a form, and then we assign people to control them, right? Now, CCP monitoring, we also need to consider, can you detect any CCP failure quickly enough? So that's called timely detection of CCP failure, so that it allows you to isolate the affected product immediately. So example, if you have metal detector in place, that is your CCP, does the metal detector do that? Okay, when they detect metal in the product, maybe it will trigger the alarm, so you're aware, and then it will channel the affected product to another line, and then go to the reject bin. So that means timely detection. So they have added this requirement into the standard for you to add into your implementation. All right. Okay. So that's the things that I would like to share with you on Chapter 2 HACCP system. So now, how do I start? So if you have yet to upgrade your current HACCP system to 2020 version, so this can be your guide on where to start. So you can start with attending a full training, okay, on the new version, especially on new requirements about food safety culture and allergen management. Then do a gap analysis to know the gap of your current system. So from there, you will know what to update in the documents, okay, and perhaps infrastructure change to meet the new requirements. So once the review and upgrade is done, then arrange a briefing or training to update everyone on the changes before you implement them. So do give yourself some time to adapt to the changes during implementation. Continue to adjust your SOP and the controls if needed. So once the implementation is stable, you can proceed with the upgrading certification process. And remember to consistently implement it, maintain the system by doing the performance measurement. So that's all I have for you today. Do let me know your questions in the comment box. And over to you, Shi. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your informative session. We are grateful that you're sharing your knowledge and experiences, and many of us are definitely benefiting from the sharing today. So, guys, if you have any more questions for Miss Daniel, please feel free to write it down in the YouTube comments. We will try our best to answer your questions later. Yeah. Now, before we proceed to the Q&A session, we have a good news for you. For those who have, who have stayed throughout the whole session with us, we have a complimentary discovery call on this particular Codex HACCP 2020. If you are not sure whether this upgrading is needed for the time being, instead of bombarding you with tons of information over here, why not we jump on a quick discovery call so that we can actually understand better your needs and you can make a better decision thereafter. So feel free to take out your phone right now, scan the QR code and register yourself for this free discovery call, yeah? Or alternatively, you guys can actually refer to the link in the comment box for the booking later on as well, okay? All right, without further delay, let us welcome Miss Daniel back for the Q&A session, okay? I think we have some questions from the floor, Miss Daniel. Okay, let me just go to the first question. Yeah, hang on. Okay, Miss Daniel, there is a question from SY. Okay, the question is, when do we need to transit to 2020 version? Is there any timeline to it?
All right, thanks. The weird things about this Codex HACCP 2020 is there's no deadline to update it, meaning they don't give like a transition 2 years or 3 years period. There's no deadline. However, we have checked with the certification body auditors that it is a requirement to update. So let's say in your next certification cycle, if you haven't update to 2020 version, there might be a non-conformance issue. For example, allergen management need to be added, but during the next audit, it has not been added and implemented yet. It could end up as a non-conformance.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So, guys, you have to upgrade as well. Even though there's no timeline to it, you will also get NC as what Ms. Daniel has mentioned. Okay. So, next question. Okay, how shall we control on the non-conformance raw materials or packaging if suppliers are unable to solve the root causes of problems raised effectively?
How shall we control the NC raw mat packaging if supplier unable to solve the root cause? Okay. All right. So there are two things over here because as we mentioned, to implement the food safety, we need the internal people and external people to contribute to food safety. So the external people here are referring to suppliers. So when it happened, what are the things that you can do? What are the things that you can do is separating the NC product, right? But the root cause and the problem that caused the problem, we are not able to solve it ourselves, but our supplier. All right. So if your supplier are unable to solve, so what does it mean? Is it means that they have tried something and they couldn't solve it? Okay. Or maybe they don't respond to your request to, come up with an investigation. So if the first scenario is they have tried something but couldn't solve it, can you guys work together? So can you two come together, maybe visit the factory and then look into the problem together? So if they are your dedicated supplier and you want to maintain the relationship and their product is basically okay, it's just sometimes got problem, then maybe this is what you can try to work together to come up with the solutions. So second scenario is if let's say they are not responding to you, okay, basically they just ignore you, then it's just like dating. If someone you ask them call for dating many times, they don't want to come up, what do? You move on, right? So perhaps you need to look for alternative supplier. Okay, that's my answer.
Okay, so Kang Wei, you know what to do. Please date your supplier. Okay, so next question from Miss Jessie, I think. Okay, is it necessary to conduct risk assessment for radiology risks?
Okay, thank you. So, whether it's a need to conduct a risk assessment on a certain element, for example, in these questions is radiology, it always go back to the raw material that you use. Is there a risk with radiological risk? So, for example, if you are buying fresh seafood product from Japan, you're importing the product from Japan, and we know that sometimes Japan do have incident of nuclear plant, the leakage of the radiological substances to the sea. Then when we do the risk assessment, we know that the risk is high. So we will need to do a risk assessment to include that into our hazard analysis. So in that case, it's a yes. But if your product, the raw material that you use, there's no past history, okay, or no any literature to show there's a risk in radiological, then there's no need to do it. So it depends on the product. Yeah.
Okay. So Miss Jessie, it's necessary, but it also depends on the products, okay? So Mr. Ivan Chiu has raised a question. Is it compulsory to conduct food safety culture assessment to comply to the requirements? If yes, how to conduct it?
Okay, so it is compulsory to start building a food safety culture in your company. However, in the standard, it didn't say how to do it. So the questions that you put up here is actually one of the method how to do it. So of course, yes, you can conduct a food safety culture assessment. And it's not the question about compulsory, but will this assessment help you or not? So for me, it definitely helps the company because before we want to introduce some changes, we want to assess what is the gap in our food safety culture in the company, right? So if the assessment can help you to identify the gap, then you would know very clear that how big or how small the gap we need to close to achieve the food safety culture goal. So it's not compulsory, but it is one effective way to start doing it. So if yes, how to conduct it, right? So there are many food safety culture assessment questions available on the internet. We also have one simple one. So if you need, you can contact us and then we can send a copy to you. So you can add more questions along the way. It's just something like a survey questionnaire. So for you just to gauge where are you. So once you gauge, then you identify the gap. So let's say, for example, the questions that I show in the trainings, the webinar slides later, let's say the questions you ask is, who is responsible for food safety? So if majority of the answer that you get from top management, middle management, and lower management, it says that all say QA, or maybe 90% say QA, then you know the gap is big. You know that, okay, I will need to work on many things so that now other department also will have awareness. They need to be accountable for food safety as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Ivan, it is encouraged to do the assessment so that you can actually know the gap in between. Then only you can make a better decision thereafter. Yeah. Okay. So next question, Daniel. What are the mostly used method, okay, to conduct food safety culture assessment in the company?
I think they are similar to the my answer will be similar to my answer on the previous questions. There are no one standard method. The mostly used common method is basically, in fact, there are many websites, they have set up this food safety culture assessment questionnaire as well. I noticed that some certification body, they does that as well. So there's no particular method. The common one is basically the questionnaire method, which something similar to what I've shown in the webinar, asking the questions to understand different level. So I have modified a bit because I want to, today I focus on consistency, right? But the food safety culture assessment, they might be designed into a different area, like what is the top management awareness on food safety, and then they will go to operation level, and then they will go to in terms of, competency level. Yeah. So, but the method is almost similar. It's all in, questions form.
Okay. So Ms. Lam, Ms. Daniel has mentioned about the method. I think we will be sharing the questionnaire also later on. If you are interested, do give us a quick book our slot for the quick discovery call. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, next question from Miss Jessie again. How to differentiate the high risk and low risk area, and how we show that we categorize the area based on risk?
Okay, in fact, in Codex HACCP standard, there are no guidance document on this. How, like, there's no questionnaire for us to check, okay, this one belong to high risk, that one belong to low risk. There's none. Okay, so but how do we do that since there's a requirement to separate them, right? Basically can be based on the basic principle. So if we divide it into high and low risk, then you need to have your own definition. What is high risk? What is low risk? So maybe high risk is the product is still exposed. The raw material is still under process, it's still exposed. We haven't packed it yet. So then you put up your definition for high risk. And then low risk is when all the product is already packed properly and protected, and there's no processing process anymore. So that's considered low risk. And then you may have another zone is let's say non-production area, which is non-operation area, like for example, canteen, office, or lab. So you can have different category. So you need to have your own definition since there's no definition given by the Codex HACCP 2020. So if you think that it's very difficult for us to define ourselves, you can actually refer to the BRC standard, the BRC global standard for food safety. At the back of the standard, they actually have a definition on different risk zone, but that is a little bit complicated. You can base on that and then simplify it. So meaning to say you come up with your own definition, so that you can actually systematically categorize different area based on maybe the risk chart that you build yourself. Or if you choose to 100% follow the BRC one, yes, you can.
Okay. So Miss Jessie, there's no specific risk, okay, that you can actually, you have to define yourself according to the zone and also the risk chart, like what Daniel has mentioned, or according to BRC standard. Yeah. Okay. Next one. Mr. Kang Wei Tan. Okay, what is the most suitable method for raw material risk assessment starting from beginning to plantation, transportation until receiving?
Okay, so this is on primary production, yeah. What is the most suitable method for raw material risk assessment? If you are referring to, I'm not sure whether this question is referring to hazard analysis. If yes, then the hazard analysis in the Codex HACCP 2020, they do provide the method that we need to follow. They have a template attached at the end of the standard, so which we will need to list all the raw material used, let's say in your plantation process, all right? And then after that, you also need to analyze if there's any packaging material used, because the question now is raw material, right? We analyze, usually we need to cover raw material, any processing aids, and also packaging material. So after we have done this, then we move on to the process hazard analysis. So I'm not sure, are you referring to this? If yes, then the method is we shall follow the hazard analysis worksheet template provided. So in that template, we list out all the raw material that we use, and then each raw material we need to go through biological, chemical, physical hazard, and then there is a risk table. Again, the standard didn't provide the food safety hazard matrix table, which you can, use any references that is rational. Then you put them in your risk level. So, but if you're talking about another type of risk assessment, like to link it to your supplier, then that is another format. So let me know which one you're referring to, or did I answer your question? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think, Kang Wei, it's better for you to jump on a quick discovery call later on so that we can answer, accurately to your questions. Okay. Next one. Okay. You have another question, Kang Wei. For powder form materials, what is the most suitable measures to control from allergen contamination to other materials? If there are other materials need to be weighed in similar areas. Okay.
So meaning you only have one weighing area which you will need to weigh allergen and non-allergen, and it is powder form, right? So powder form will have a risk of the powder will be, fly in the air and then they mix up. So the most common way you can avoid this, if you really cannot separate the room. If you can, that is the best way. Like this is allergen material weighing room, another one. But sometimes it's difficult to do because you may have different type of allergen material as well. So let's say you have one single room. So the only way to do it is basically to actually, you need to weigh your non-allergen powder first. Okay, you need to weigh your non-allergen powder first and then followed by allergen material. So during the changeover from one allergen to another allergen, let's say after I weigh non-allergen material, 10 of them, then next I have 2 allergen material. So the first allergen material, let's say milk powder, after I weigh already, before I move on to maybe egg powder, then I will need to do a changeover cleaning first of all your equipment and also your room. So after that is done, then only you move on to weighing the egg powder. And also, because we can't have separate room, but I believe you can have different sets of weighing equipment for allergen material. So separate them from non-allergen and allergen. So usually this is the common way to control allergen contamination in production process.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Kang Wei, I will come back to you with the discovery call. Okay, next one. Okay, our organization was audited based on HACCP, and I still need food safety culture procedures for how, when to execute effectively.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. So, so many have asked the questions on how to start, right? So just now, some actually, how do we do the food safety culture assessment? So if you haven't done that, maybe you can start with that. So in your procedure, you can write something very simple. Like first, we'll need to do a food safety culture assessment. And how frequent do you want to do that? You may do it in the beginning. You can also continue to do it on a yearly basis because there might be changes in the organization. So what happened 1 year ago may not be the same 1 year after. So you can choose to do it on a yearly basis, right? You may also modify your questions in the food safety culture questionnaire. So there's one thing that you can put inside your food safety culture procedure. So what happened next? After you have done the assessment, you identify the gap, right? So from the gap, maybe you need a team to sit down together to discuss how to close the gap. So how to close the gap is you will need to come up with an action plan. So in your procedure, you can say something like this, like we identify the gap and then we have a meeting, discuss, and then come up with the gap. So in the gap, you will have, in the action plan, then you will list down, okay, in terms of awareness, this is what we're going to do. In terms of documentation, this is what we're going to do. In terms of reporting, these are the new report that we're going to create, blah, blah, blah. Then you put in your action plan, who is in charge, and then action plan, and then, when to review it. So I hope this will actually show how and when you want to execute the things that you want to do to build food safety culture. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move to the next one. Okay. From Miss Siti, what is the general roles for top management?
Top management general role. Okay. Interesting questions. So top management of the company, okay, in food safety context, top management will be basically, he's the leader of the company. So he is number one person that need to convey the right message. So he needs to make sure that the alignment is there. So what the company is going, the direction, the vision, mission, the value, the purpose must be in align with your food safety. So the business strategy cannot compromise on food safety. Yeah, so I think that is one of the role played by top management in food safety system. Then in order to support that, then there are many things that top management need to do already. Provide sufficient resources, okay, to ensure the system can run smoothly, and then also review the system. What is the performance of the system with the leadership team? Yeah, so I think I will stop here for the general role. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, we have another 2 more, Daniel. Okay, how do we determine that shelf life of veggie product and non-veggie product?
How do we determine the shelf life? Is there any literature references that you can refer? That's number one. So if there is, then there is a guide. Number two, we still need to prove them. So you can run a shelf life test. Okay, you can run the shelf life test for your veggie and non-vegetable product. So always start with the first one. Try to find out information and any available study about this product. What is the recommended shelf life? And then number 2, prove them. Validate the shelf life.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Last question. Okay, from the floor. Okay, is it we are able to apply? Are we able to apply HACCP cert from MOH main product and private sub product, but we use same line production? Okay, and run both product on the same day, which actually share the same room for 2 products.
Let me try to understand this. Are we able to apply HACCP cert from MOH for the main product
Yeah.
and private sub-product? What do you mean by that? Meaning you have 2 products to be included in your HACCP system, is it? One is main product and one is sub-product, right? 2 products, right? So if that is the case, you are saying your scenario is these 2 different products are using same production line and run both products on the same day. So which actually share the room for 2 products. Okay, I don't have any information on your product. So let's create a scenario. You can share the different product on same production line if the product characteristic did not, how to say, it won't affect in an adverse manner to each other. So for example, let's say my main product has no allergen, but my sub-product have allergen, then it's not recommended to run on the same line. But again, many companies, they don't have they don't have a separate line to run another product already. They have to use the same line. So like I mentioned earlier, we will need to do a changeover cleaning to make sure there's no allergen residue. All right. Then I will assume these 2 products are food product. So if one is food, one is not food, then totally cannot. It have to be separated. So if both are food and they don't affect in an adverse manner to each other in terms of food safety, then there's no issue to use the same production line. So you just need to have set up a proper SOP to do a proper product changeover. So run product number 1. After finish, you do a proper cleaning and changeover to make sure there's no residue, remain on the equipment and machine. Then move on to the second product. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, I guess that was the last question from the comment box. Okay, we apologize, the time allocated has actually come to an end. We actually passed short the time. It's about 3:22. We definitely hope we have more time for this, but we do not want to take up so much of a precious time. Yeah, but thank you everyone for your questions earlier. I hope the speaker has answered most of your queries. So aside from today's Codex HACCP 2020 topic, okay, we have another webinar on ERP Plus coming up, which is on 13 April 2022. Same timing at 2 p.m. Do feel free to join us in this session. We are more than glad to see you all again, okay? All right, if you have more questions, don't worry. You can always reach us for any inquiries or direct contact the numbers you see on your screen right now, okay? And if you want to keep yourself up to date for various info and latest industry news, okay, please do check us out on our website and our social media platforms. All right, with that, I would like to thank everyone for your precious time here today, okay? I hope you all had a wonderful session and a fruitful takeaway today, okay? Have a good day ahead, and I hope to see you guys again soon in our upcoming webinar. Bye-bye.